Ladies and gentlemen, what's happening? Gordie Tamayo here with Digital Unicorn, and I'm going to walk you through today how to create a webinar. So, for those of you that have been around for a minute, it's no surprise that webinars are popping off and a great way to engage audiences, to gain new leads, to lead to other sales and offerings, etc. And it couldn't be more easier now with the new layout and feature within Digital Unicorn and creating a funnel that's specifically designed for webinars. And so I'm going to walk you through from scratch how to do this, and you'll see how simple it really is. Okay, so let's jump right in. Right within the dashboard here under sites, you'll notice that you got webinars. And so really what this is going to do is give you some templated options on how to get this thing jump started really, really quick. Now, there's a couple things you want to know in advance. One, you need to have a form that's created, okay? And having a form is going to allow you to capture the content that then you're going to use to, send out text messages to, emails, etc. for registration, and then route them to the next steps in the process. Okay, so super important that you have the form created here first. All right. Next thing that you're going to want to know is obviously everybody uses different streaming services for webinars and whatnot. So it really depends on what your choices of software that you're using. So mine might look a little bit different than yours, but nonetheless, the concept is still the same. Okay. So I wanted you to see where the webinars are first and foremost. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and create a form first. It'll just make the process less complicated. Okay. So let's go to the builder. We're going to add one. We're going to do it from a template. We're just going to create a really simple one here that has name, email, just for example purposes here. All right. I'm going to give it a name, and then we'll show you what we're going to do with that in just a second. All right. So assuming this is what I need it to say, I'm going to label it like this. Let's just say that's all I want. You could add as many fields as you need to, obviously, but for example, for this example, we're just going to walk through it this way. All right. Now, the other thing you're going to want to do is we'll come back to this in just a second. I'll show you where to access this, but in your styles and options here, under options, okay, you're going to have to tell it what to do when somebody submits to this. Okay, so when somebody submits to it, we're going to redirect it to the next step in the funnel. So you're going to need the next step in the funnel right here, and we'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and save this for now. Okay, we know we got that. And then I'm going to go back to our site tab here, and I'll just open one up just for funsies here so we have one ready to go for the next piece. Okay, but let's go back into webinars now. So now we're going to create our webinar, and we're going to add a new funnel here. We're going to say we're doing a live webinar, and we're going to use a template here in just a second, but I'm going to name it the same thing. We're going to make sure we get the time zone correctly. You want to make sure you do that because that has to mirror up with whatever your webinar stream is saying as well. And then I'm just going to choose a date here, but I'm going to make sure it matches up with the time. Okay, so obviously this is just an example, but in a real case scenario, you're going to want to make sure this matches up. All right, so let's just do this real quick. We're going to hit OK. We're going to go confirm, and next step in our funnel. And here's why I wanted you to create the form first, because within here, you're going to tell it what form that you want to create. So in this case, it's this implementation, AI for Business Workshop implementation is what we named it, okay? Next, and in here is the link to your actual webinar. So again, whatever software you're using, whether it's Zoom, Teams, StreamYard, YouTube, whatever it is, that link's going to go here, okay? You're going to hit next. And then here's where you got some options for, creating this from scratch or doing a template. We're just going to use this template and let this create. Now what it's going to do is create first 3 different pages here, as you can see. A webinar registration page, a webinar confirmation page, and a webinar broadcast page. And you'll see why. So it takes them down the funnel steps here. Okay. So from the inception here, on this other tab, I'm just going to go ahead and open up actually my form builder again and go to this specific form that I had built out, if you remember. Okay. So what I want to do first off is I'm going to go to the next step in the funnel to show you where we grab that URL. And we won't go into all the nitty gritty of the settings and whatnot, but obviously within here, you can change, the name of these funnel steps, the path form, etc. And for the overall pages themselves, you can change what domain they're connected to. I don't have these connected to a specific domain right now, so they're all going to have kind of the long string URL here that's attached to this, okay? But you can see that's the preview of it, all right? So, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and just open up the second step in the funnel real quick so I can grab this URL, because that's what we want to send it to on the form submission, okay? So we're going to go in here, and in the form again, I'm going to go to options on submit. I'm going to tell it that's the step I want it to go to, and I'll go ahead and save that, okay? We'll leave this alone for just a second. All right, now we're going to come into the webinar registration, and I'm going to show you a preview of what that looks like. So basically it has your form embedded here, has your call to action and header here, has a couple other placeholders, a nice stock video, blurb about the speakers, and obviously all this stuff's going to be customizable to your liking, okay? That's just a preview of it, right? If you were to edit this, you can swap out various things within here, obviously within the editor. If you need to switch the format, you can switch the format. If you needed to edit it, it'll pull up the editor within this as well, okay? But you get a feel for what that looks like, all right? And then the next thing that we're going to do, and we're not going to test all this out until we get all the pieces in place, because I want to show you. So we got the registration page built out. It's got the form in there. We connected the form to the second step, right? I showed you how to get that URL here. You can do that. And then from there, it takes you to the webinar broadcast page, which looks like this right now. That's the preview of it. This is just a placeholder image, which we'll get rid of in just a second. Okay. But so what we're going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and go in this editor, this webinar broadcast editor. And I've already created a stream for this specific webinar that we're going to embed in here. So I'm going to get rid of this image because we really don't need it. Okay. And we're going to add a custom block here for HTML. So you can click on that, open the editor, paste your code in here for the embed, and save that. All right. Make sure it's saved. Change out any of the items that you want, whether your header, logo, etc. All this stuff is customizable. Okay, but you can see how easy that was. Now we really got all the pieces in place here for a functional webinar. So hypothetically, I'm going to open this up. This is what it looks like. Somebody goes to your page, they enter in your info, they hit submit. It's going to route them to the next page for a confirmation. And you got your button here that's going to route them to the next page as well. Oh, but we didn't tell that where to go, okay? So you can see where step one works. So we're going to go back to step two, and we got to tell this button where to go when they click here on the confirmation. So this watch the webinar, we're going to scroll down, and we're going to tell it where to go. It wants to go to the webinar broadcast, all right? We're going to hit save on that. I haven't actually published this page yet, but obviously you get what I'm doing. This is for example here. Oops, so let's make sure it's saved. All right, so let's try this again. We're going to go straight from the registration page here. So somebody registers for the webinar, they submit. It's going to route them to the next page for confirmation. Now they can decide, oh, I want to go watch this webinar. It takes them to the next page, and bam, you have the embedded webinar within your spot now. So this is obviously not live, otherwise it'd be playing already, but you see the full flow of it. And that just took us a few minutes, really. It really didn't take us that long, right? So hopefully that gives you a really clear picture of how easy it is to construct this webinar. You can customize it, take a little bit more time to make it pretty and branded according to your specific brand. But just to recap what we did, we made sure we created a form that would capture the registrants. Okay. Once that was done, we created a webinar funnel. Okay. It added the pages for us, the 3 pages, the original registration page, the confirmation page, and the broadcast page. Okay. We made sure that this form routes to the second step in the funnel because that form is embedded in the first step. Okay. So somebody registers, takes them to this one. Got to make sure you edit that button that it takes them to the third step in the webinar. And then they're able to watch that actual webinar when it's live. Okay. Now, obviously, there's a lot more things you can do in this particular instance because you can create automations now. Because if you captured all the information in that form, then now you can send recurring reminders for them on the upcoming webinar. And you can, even do day of reminders where it sends them directly to this webinar URL where they can watch it. And it's all kind of in the same ecosystem, if you would, within your funnel within here. Okay. And so many different things that you can do with this, but I love how the simplicity has been pieced together here for you to create the pages that you need. And it really just takes a couple of extra steps with creating the form and making sure that you got a stream created that you can then embed within the funnel. So I hope that excites you. I hope that helps you out in getting the steps in place for you to make this a super simple process on creating the next webinar. And we will catch you next time.